I never thought a locked office would reveal a secret millionaire doctor's life. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. It started with a vague panic threading through my stomach. My heart raced as I stood in front of that door, the shiny brass handle gleaming in the dim light. I shouldn't have been here. The air crackled with secrets, and each breath felt heavier. Dr. Mitchell had always seemed larger than life. In the clinic, he was a wizard with a scalpel, stitching together not just skin but hope. Everyone loved him, patients, colleagues, even the janitors. But behind that charm, there had always been shadows. Whispers of luxurious cars, mysterious trips, and an unseen world. They said he was more than just a doctor, he was a millionaire. I had been eager to impress him. I stayed late, volunteered for research, and laughed a little too hard at his jokes. I wanted a glimpse of his world, to unlock whatever secrets lay behind that polished veneer. Now, staring at this locked door, the thrill of discovery nudged me forward. My fingers trembled, heart pounding like a drum. What if I found something important? What if I didn't? The clinic was deserted now. Silence pressed down on me, thick and suffocating. Flickering fluorescent lights overhead added to the eerie atmosphere. I took a deep breath and turned the handle. For a heartbeat, I felt the weight of the world on my shoulders, each heartbeat echoing in the empty hallway. But it wouldn't budge. Frustrated, I glanced around. A nearby table caught my eye, its surface cluttered with paperwork and a heavy, old-fashioned key. It sat there like a blushing sun amidst clouds, almost calling to me. I could hear my heart in my ears, louder and louder as I snatched it up. Hopefully, it was for that door. Sweat trickled down my spine as I approached the locked office again, hoping. I slid the key into the lock, and it felt like destiny. It fit. My hand shook as I twisted the key. A low click echoed in the silence, the door creaking open, releasing a musty scent, mixed with something slightly sweet. What I saw inside took my breath away. Piles of money stacked haphazardly, gold and glitter, mingled with pictures, odd, disturbing images of people I recognized from the clinic. Their faces frozen in screams and anguish, eyes wide with sorrow. My chest tightened, and a lump lodged in my throat. This was no ordinary doctor's office. Sudden footsteps echoed behind me. I spun around, fear gnawing at my insides. Was it Dr. Mitchell? My heart pounded, each second stretching like an eternity. I stumbled backward into the room, the sound of the door slamming shut almost deafening. Tears threatened to spill over. I needed to know. I needed answers. But was I ready for the truth lurking in the shadows? My mind raced. What if I had just opened a door to hell? I stood, frozen, heart hammering as the footsteps approached, a sense of dread filling the air. I felt trapped, caught in this terrifying web. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The footsteps halted abruptly outside the door, a chilling silence enveloping the room. I held my breath, my hands trembling, hot fear washing over me like a wave. Every fleeting shadow felt alive, curling around me like tendrils threatening to squeeze the air from my lungs. I searched frantically for a way out, my gaze darting to the window. It was sealed shut, the glass foggy and grimy. There was no escape. Who's in there? The voice belonged to Dr. Mitchell, deep and authoritative, dripping with that signature charm that had always captivated the clinic staff. My heart dropped. I could either reveal myself or play the coward. I chose silence, pressing my back against the door like it could protect me from the mounting storm on the other side. "What are you doing in my office?" His tone shifted, the warmth deflating into something cold and sharp. The fear within me coalesced into a desperate resolve. I needed to understand what lay behind those pictures, the horror immortalized in their frozen expressions. Was he truly a hero, or had I been a fool to idolize a man hiding such darkness? Suddenly, there was a soft knock, surprisingly gentle against the heavy tension. "Please," Dr. Mitchell's voice broke slightly. I need a moment. "Can we talk?" My heart twisted at the unexpected vulnerability in his tone. It caught me off guard, like catching a glimpse of a crack in a mighty facade. Was he human, flawed, or was this just another charming ploy to weave me back into his orbit? He waited, and I could almost feel the weight of his sigh through the door. A strange pang of empathy pierced through my fear. Beneath the layers of his arrogance and suave demeanor, was there a tortured soul battling invisible demons? "What do you want?" I finally replied, my voice shaky. "On the precipice of confrontation that I want to explain," he sighed. "I cannot let you see this." Not my mind churned, drowning in confusion. The enormity of what I had stumbled upon threatened to overwhelm me. "You can't keep your life a secret, Dr. Mitchell. People are suffering. Those images, they mean something. I deserve to know." Silence hung heavy for what felt like an eternity. The air between us charged, pulsing with unspoken words. I could almost hear the gears turning in his mind. Then came a softer reply, "You have to trust me." Trust him? Trust the man whose office grotesquely blended wealth with the anguish of those he was supposed to save? How had I fallen into this web? In the gut of my turmoil, a flicker of kindness suddenly pierced through my fog of distrust. A light memory of an early morning at the clinic surfaced, a patient with no money who had stepped through the doors, battered and bleeding. Dr. Mitchell had taken the time, worked past the clock, and treated them all night long, refusing to accept a dime. His devotion to his patients sincerely baffled and astounded me. Even then, whispers of his riches began to surface, but tonight, the allure of his heroism was marred by these grotesque truths. I might have once idolized him, but now doubt loomed large. "What happened to those people in the pictures?" I demanded, my voice firmer, each word laced with determination. "I'll explain everything," he finally said, the defeat in his tone washing over me like a soft rain on a parched desert. "If you come out, I promise. Just give me the chance to show you the truth behind it all." That I let out a shuddering breath, uncertain of the choice before me. Here I was, in a terrifying intersection between curiosity and fear, standing directly before the precipice of more than I was ready for. But tangled within that turmoil was an unexpected glimmer of hope, the chance for understanding, for salvation, even amidst the chaos. "Fine," I breathed, vulnerability rising again in my chest. As I moved to unlock the door, fate had its own intentions. Before the key could turn, the lights flickered violently, plunging us into darkness. Startled, I stifled a gasp, grappling in the pitch of night. The air pulsed with tension as an unfamiliar sound reverberated through the clinic, a soft beeping, insistent and alarmed. There was something wrong, something more than just my confrontation with Dr. Mitchell. A gut instinct gripped me, a rising sense of urgency. "What's happening?" I shouted, but the darkness swallowed my voice. The quiet interlude of our conversation shattered, as panicked footsteps pounded against the tile floors outside, and the unsettling beeping grew louder, more frantic. Dr. Mitchell's voice came again, sharper now, "You need to hide." My heart raced anew as adrenaline coursed through me. I needed to know the truth, but it seemed darker forces were at play. The door opened into chaos, the world outside unfurling into an unimaginable consequence. With no time to think, I scuttled back into the room, my mind racing with questions, the grasp of fate tightening around me. In that moment, as the footsteps approached, and the beeping intensified, I realized I was not only tangled in Dr. Mitchell's secrets but also on the cusp of a greater truth that would unravel everything I believed. The air buzzed with uncertainty, and with each moment that passed, the stakes soared, shifting my entire reality as the clinic morphed from a sanctuary to a battleground against the unknown. As the door crackled open behind me, the shadows swiftly closed in, and alongside them, fears I could never have anticipated loomed menacingly on the horizon. The darkness lingered like a suffocating shroud, pressing against my chest as the chaotic sounds outside intensified. My heart matched the frantic rhythm of the beeping, a mechanical pulse urging me to make a choice to flee or to face the storm gathering on the other side of the door. Hide. Now. Dr. Mitchell's voice bore an edge of desperation. I turned towards him, and for a split second, our eyes locked in a clash of fear and uncertainty. The door was ajar, but the chaos beyond it threatened to swallow me whole. That I dove under his desk, the coolness of the floor seeping into my skin. I peered out from the darkness, trying to catch a glimpse of what lay ahead. Footsteps thundered down the hallway, growing louder and urgent, accompanied by indistinct shouts that blended into a cacophony of confusion. The beeping echoed like a heart trying to beat its last. Get the emergency teams here now. I heard a voice bellow, authoritative and frantic. My mind raced. Was this about Dr. Mitchell? Had I unearthed something that went beyond my struggle for the truth? Outside the office, the clatter of footsteps halted before the door. My breath hitched as the clinic staff began to file in, their faces painted with panic. I strained to listen, piecing together fragments of what was going on. He's gone rogue. We have to find him. A nurse cried, dread painted across her features. Dr. Mitchell, still within arm's reach, was suddenly seized by urgency. Wait! He shouted, shoving the door wider, his figure silhouetted against the chaos spilling around us. You can't. We have to contain this before it spreads. That I felt a rush of dread. What was it that needed containing? My fingers grasped the edges of the desk, knuckles turning white as I listened, hoping to glean vital information that would put the pieces together. A moment of silence hung in the air before an answer came. He's activated the lockdown protocol. If we don't find him now, we risk losing everything. The weight of their words pressed down on me. Everything? What kind of doctor had I been idolizing all this time? My resolve cracked, splintering under the immense pressure of their revelations. I knew I had to confront Dr. Mitchell, to unearth the truth once and for all. Yet as the shadows thickened and reality twisted, a knot of fear churned in my stomach. Just as I was about to emerge, the beeping grew louder, a haunting reminder that my time was running out. I could no longer wait in the dark. I slipped out from under the desk, bracing myself as I emerged into the turmoil. Dr. Mitchell noticed me instantly, his expression a volatile mixture of relief and something akin to fear. Stay back. It's not safe here. He warned, moving closer to me, urgency coiling around his words. I can explain, but we need to leave now. Leave? I echoed, still paralyzed by the overwhelming confusion encircling us. I need to know. What does all of this mean? What happened to the patients? Why the lockdown? His gaze softened just a fraction, a flicker of the compassion I once trusted blossoming in his eyes. I cannot tell you everything, but I promise it's not what it seems. There are forces at play beyond this clinic that want to keep you in the dark. The pictures, the secrets, they're just a piece of a much larger puzzle. My breath quickened, every instinct in me screaming for answers. Before I could respond, another wave of chaos crashed through the door. The clinic's manager, Ms. Alberts, barreled inside, wild-eyed and frantic. There are patients, some of them are missing. We need to evacuate. She cried out, fear etched into her features. The gravity of her words sent my heart plummeting. How many lives were intertwined in this unseen chaos? Dr. Mitchell's body language shifted. He was no longer just my mentor but also a man bound by guilt and secrets. I have to go, he declared, a sudden determination anchoring his voice. Just trust me. Promise me you'll keep out of this. Trust you? My voice wavered, torn between blindly following him or screaming for answers. The irony suffocated me. How could I trust someone enmeshed in such a web of deceit? But the cries of those outside ignited a spark of urgency within me. No, I can't. I need to know the truth. If patients are missing, if lives are at stake, I can't just walk away. My own words rang with determination, each syllable resonating with the reality that I couldn't turn my back. "I'll give you what you need to know soon, I promise," he assured me, though doubt clouded his voice. "But for now, we have to run." Before I could absorb his plea, he wheeled around and bolted for the door. The chaos roared to life around us, illuminating the darkened hallways with flashes of panic. My heart raced with every step that took me towards the unknown, towards truth veiled in shadows, towards the decision that would change everything. As I dashed after him, a sudden, sickening thought coiled in my gut: what if escaping this hell instead led us directly into greater peril? My intuition screamed that I was not just following a mentor, but perhaps stepping into a network of deception far more dangerous than I ever anticipated. With dread gnawing at my insides, I rounded the corner and stopped short. What loomed before us was a sight that froze me in place, a revelation woven with adrenaline and fear that shifted every facet of my understanding. In the flickering light from an emergency lamp, I spotted faces staring back at us through the glass of the clinic's main entryway. Faces that were supposed to be inside, faces that should have been safe. They were standing there, filled with uncertainty and something that sent a chill down my spine. They were waiting not just for help, but for answers, and the stark realization hit harder than anything I had encountered before: we were not alone. The secrets swirling around Dr. Mitchell were about to unravel, but the truth I sought was intertwined with the lives at stake, lives that could change everything I believed about salvation, sacrifice, and the shadows within those we trusted the most. Panic washed over me as I stared into the faces at the entryway, their expressions a mirror of fear and uncertainty. These were not just patients, they were individuals, each with stories and lives intertwined with one another, now precariously hanging in the balance just outside those glass doors. My heart raced, torn between the urge to rush to them and the overpowering need to stay close to Dr. Mitchell, who now felt like a thread connecting me to the truth. Dr. Mitchell, I whispered, scarcely able to break my gaze from the crowd. "What are they doing out there? Why aren't they inside?" His expression shifted from urgency to something more complex, an emotion I struggled to decipher. "They shouldn't be here," he murmured. "This isn't part of the plan." "We have to." "Part of what plan?" I interrupted, frustration boiling over. "You keep saying you'll explain, but lives are at stake. Can't you see that?" "I know," he replied, an edge of desperation creeping into his tone. "And if we don't act fast, we'll all be caught in the crossfire." Without further ado, he pushed past me, making for the door. Alarm bells echoed in my mind, a cacophony urging me to reach out and stop him. "Wait. What if you're leading us right into the danger you're trying to escape?" But the urgency in his stride told me he could no longer afford to hesitate. I had choices that would alter not only my path but the lives of everyone around me. The fear crept up my spine. I could easily slip away, into the safety of ignorance. But something deeper tugged at my heart, urging me toward the truth, toward those faces waiting outside. Just then, a child's voice broke through the tumult, raw and trembling. "Mommy. Where are you?" A sharp intake of breath caught in my throat. I whipped around to face the glass doors again, my heart shattering for the helpless child calling out for comfort. I fought back tears, realizing the personal stakes not just for me, but for every parent, every child, every individual longing for safety in a place that was supposed to be protected. Dr. Mitchell paused, visibly conflicted, casting a sharp glance between me and the door. I could see the internal chaos waging within him, the weight of choices rendered heavier still by the lives gathered before us like boats adrift in a storm. "Stay here," he ordered, but the authority in his voice felt thin against the backdrop of despair. "I need Tono," I shouted, my resolve crystallizing with each passing second. "You cannot just leave them like this. They deserve to know what's happening, they deserve to be safe." He hesitated, the tension thick enough to slice through. "It's not that simple," he said quietly, almost pleading. "They're safer where?" I shot back, pointing toward the door. You think they'll be okay standing around in confusion? You're leaving them to the wolves. A flicker of acknowledgement crossed his face, but the weight of unspoken fears kept him rooted in place. And what if I can't help them? What if bringing them inside puts everyone in more danger? I met his gaze, feeling the burden of his doubt. But I also saw a glimmer of the man I had once respected, a man caught between protection and peril. You can help them, I implored. You just have to trust me. We can unveil what's hidden together. After what felt like an eternity, a shallow breath escaped him, accompanied by a weary nod. Okay, he agreed, but we need to tread carefully. As he slowly moved for the door again, I remained by his side, fear and faith intertwined within me like roots pulling toward light. Just as we reached the threshold, I became acutely aware of a presence behind us. The clinic manager, Ms. Alberts, stood at the entrance with widened eyes, her hands trembling slightly. Wait, you can't, she began, urgency lacing her tone, but before she could finish, a loud crash erupted from within the bowels of the clinic. We all flinched, the sound echoing like thunder. What was that? I gasped, instinctively stepping back, drawing Dr. Mitchell with me. That's what we need to avoid. It's happening, he muttered, his earlier resolve splintering under the weight of new realization. An emergency light sputtered into life, casting sinister shadows all around us while fear surged anew. From somewhere deeper in the clinic, the mechanical whirring of machinery drowned out the voices of the onlookers outside, and faint screams punctuated the chaotic atmosphere. Help! Another distant voice echoed, desperate and heart-wrenching. It had come from a location I couldn't pinpoint, yet it struck a chord deep within. My heart raced, my instinct screaming that if we didn't act now, lives teetering on the brink of peril could be lost. We have to go. I pleaded, taking Dr. Mitchell's arm. We can't just stand here. Ms. Alberts grasped Dr. Mitchell's shoulder, panic etched across her face. You must secure the perimeter. If they've breached this far, it was too late. An overwhelming sense of urgency flooded through me, overwhelming every rational thought. Let's go. I urged once more, and without waiting for an answer, I pushed past them, heading toward those horrifying sounds. With every step, dread unfurled within, tinged with a creeping realization that the tapestry of trust one had woven with Dr. Mitchell was fraying at the edges. There was much left unsaid, untold truths hovering above us like a storm cloud ready to unleash its fury. As I hurtled toward the unknown, a singular thought clawed at my mind like a desperate plea. What if the truth I sought was far darker than anything I could have imagined? And just as we reached the corridor leading deeper into the clinic, another voice called out, this time closer, more urgent. It bore the unmistakable tremors of panic echoing into the void. Help! They're coming! They're coming for all of us! I skidded to a halt, dread coiling around my heart. My body froze as those words hung heavy in the air. This was no longer just about answers. We were in a battle against something incomprehensible, and I suddenly understood, the journey to truth would demand far more than I'd ever anticipated, dragging everyone into the darkness with me. The air felt thick with tension, an unspoken dread swirling around us like mist as I gripped the wall for support. My thoughts collided in a chaotic symphony, battling for dominance. Who was coming? What did they want? The haunting cries echoed louder in my ears, threatening to drown out whatever rational thoughts were left. Dr. Mitchell stepped closer, the confidence he had displayed moments ago now flickering like a candle in the wind. We need to regroup, find a way to turn off the alarms, he said, his voice now quaking with uncertainty. I could see his resolve begin to splinter at the edges, an unsettling doubt settling in his eyes, the very doubts that had pushed him to shield us from the unfolding truth, but behind my growing unease, I felt a flicker of defiance igniting within. You can't just ignore the voices. We have to help them. A wave of indignation surged through me, mingling with the urgency that gripped us all. We can't prioritize safety over lives. Before he could respond, Ms. Alberts broke in, her voice frantic. We can't afford to be heroes, we have to think logically. If whatever is happening takes over the clinic, her gaze darted toward the noise, a curdling fear showing on her face. We're out of time. Her words were charged with a truth I couldn't dismiss. Yet, the prospect of leaving those cries unanswered weighed heavily on my conscience. Somewhere deep inside, I sensed that whatever loomed beyond the doors of the clinic was intertwined with the darkness manifesting within, and perhaps, it held answers to the questions that haunted me ever since I stepped inside. With newfound determination, I turned to Dr. Mitchell, who seemed torn yet again. "We have a chance to make a difference here," I urged, searching his face for the flickers of hope I desperately needed. "You've got the skills. Use them. We need your expertise now, more than ever." His jaw clenched slightly, the internal battle raging within visible through the tension rippling across his face. The cycle of fear and hope twisted and turned like a storm on the horizon. "All right," he finally sighed, his shoulders lowering a fraction. "But we move fast. I'll need you two to keep your eyes peeled. Every decision counts." His eyes flicked between me and Ms. Albert's, searching for strength, and I knew then that he was placing a part of his faith in us, a new tether binding our fates together. Barely pausing to breathe, we pushed down the corridor, footfall echoing against sterile tiles, forging through flashing emergency lights. The unsettling sounds of chaos rang louder, each step drawing us closer to uncertainty. Suddenly, a figure shot into view ahead of us, about to tumble out from the door at the far end of the corridor. My heart lurched as I recognized the wild eyes of a nurse, frantic and disheveled. "They're coming!" she screamed, her voice raw from fear. "They've breached the main floor. Patients are in danger, we need to evacuate now." I hesitated, instinctively reaching out to grasp Dr. Mitchell's arm. This was no mere evacuation. Whatever lurked within the shadows felt real, palpable and ready to strike. Ms. Alberts, rising to her role as the rational force, stepped forward. "How many have made it out?" she asked briskly, but there was a tremor beneath her words. "Not enough." The nurse shook her head, tears streaking down her face. "They're already in, we were so caught off guard. I can help you." She looked at us like a lifeline thrown into turbulent waters, searching for anything, any corner of safety, and just as quickly, I felt the spark of my earlier doubt resurface. "What about the patients still inside? We can't just leave them," I urged, my voice thickening as the reality of the moment knitted itself tightly around my heart. The nurse met my gaze with grim resolve. "Then we split up," she insisted, determination mingling with the underlying fear. "If you can get them to the safe exit on this floor, I can lead you to those trapped below. But we have to be quick." The prospect of splitting brought a chill creeping up my spine. Trust was delicate, fragile, like the threads of hope weaving between us. However, the cries had only escalated, each passing moment digging deeper into the very core of my being. Lives were hanging in the balance, and in that instant, the decision felt as clear as day. "Okay," Dr. Mitchell said, meeting my gaze with steady clarity. "We're in. But we have to communicate. Use your phone, signal if anything is wrong." He turned to the nurse, relaying the urgency with every syllable. But as we began to pivot away toward our assigned paths, a low tremor rippled through the ground beneath our feet, the walls subtly shuddering in a disconcerting dance. It was then that the lights flickered, plunging the corridor into a temporary darkness before sputtering back to life, revealing the nurse's face twisted in horror. "Go!" she cried, but the words hung lifeless as a distant roar erupted within the maze of the clinic, chilling our skin as panic surged anew. And that was when the ground shook harder, and the horrifying reality hit us like a freight train. Whatever darkness lay beyond was now drawing closer, casting long shadows over the choices we had made. In that moment, a jolt of realization struck. I could feel Dr. Mitchell's breath hitch beside me, and I understood then that the revelation we feared so much was no longer just about the truth. This was a battle for survival, but as we seized forward, gripping onto the last threads of hope, a figure appeared at the end of the corridor, a silhouette vaguely familiar yet entirely haunted. "Help!" a voice rasped, laced with desperate pain. I never thought a locked office would reveal a secret, something that changes everything. I froze, dread blooming in my chest as I recognized the figure, the weight of unspoken truths poised to spill forth like a storm, threatening to engulf us all. The face of the figure became clearer as I pushed closer, tension crackling in the air as I struggled to comprehend the identity before me. It was Jeremy, one of the top healthcare administrators at the clinic, his usually polished demeanor now replaced with disarray and wild eyes. His shirt was untucked, and he had a gash on his forehead, blood seeping slowly from the wound, stark red against his pale skin. "Jeremy!" Dr. Mitchell shouted, his voice heavy with relief and panic. "What are you doing here? We need to get you out." But Jeremy held up a trembling hand, his gaze focused somewhere beyond us, as if he were grasping at a truth too terrible to articulate. No. No, you don't understand. His breath came in ragged gasps. It was not just the patients, there was something worse. Something that was kept secret, muttering in dark corners of the clinic. Behind closed doors. The hairs on the back of my neck stood on end. The panic bubbling within me began to mix with a sense of dread at the prospect of unearthing a buried truth. What kind of secret? I asked, the question slipping through my lips partially out of fear, partially out of morbid curiosity. Jeremy forced himself to take a deep breath, and I could see the resolve form in his eyes, fighting against the terror that gripped him. "The research," he started, his voice trembling but fierce. "We were experimenting with something beyond regenerative medicine. It was supposed to be groundbreaking, a way to save lives," but he paused, glancing nervously down the corridor, as if getting caught in that moment would seal our fates. But it started to go wrong. Patients started reacting unpredictably, much worse than anticipated. They began to change, and so did some of the staff. I tried to lock it away, to protect us all. A shiver crept down my spine, twisting into my stomach like poison. I exchanged a glance with Dr. Mitchell, whose expression mirrored my shock, the reality of the clinic's operations unraveling like a dark tapestry revealing threads of despair. "There are patients we thought we could help, but they've turned into something else," Jeremy whispered. "We thought it was scalably an advancement. But the darkness has spread. It ties back to those unspoken cries we hear." The horrifying revelation hung heavy in the air. It was as if the very walls of the clinic were breathing in the terrible secrets they had masked for so long, threatening to suffocate us all with fear and guilt that we have to save them. I insisted, a sense of urgency pooling within as an unexpected resolve flickered in my heart. "The patients trapped inside, we can still help them." Jeremy took a step back, shaking his head adamantly. "Those people are not who you think they are anymore. We can't, you don't know what you're asking." His voice was laced with raw panic, desperately attempting to shield us from the very nightmare he had unwittingly unleashed, but the sirens that echoed around us began to gnaw at my sanity, insistently urging me to act. In their song were flashes of faces I had seen in the clinic, patients who were welcoming, hopeless, but alive. I had promised to help. How could I abandon that vow now? "Time is running out," Ms. Alberts called from down the corridor, her voice slicing through the tension, urgently watching the shadows dance nearer as the lights flickered again ominously. "We need to either move or face the impending chaos. There's no time to argue or analyze the morality of the experiment." As we stood there teetering between rescue and escape, the weight of Jeremy's confession pressed down, darker than any fear I had felt before. It was not just our lives at stake, it was the lives twisted by something sinister beyond our comprehension. Then, with sudden clarity, I realized how intertwined we all were in this moment, our fates braiding together in desperation. "We can't ignore them and walk away." I shot back at Jeremy. "You may have locked the office, but it's our responsibility to throw the doors wide open. We have to make a choice here: face them or flee." Suddenly, another tremor rippled through the floor. This time more violent, making me stumble against the wall. Just as panic swelled anew within me, I saw the shadows deepen, closing in from every angle. The hallway lights flickered one last time, and I felt a charge in the atmosphere. It was suffocating, alive with the echoes of those desperate cries. Dr. Mitchell readied himself, glancing at me with steely determination, his own resolve solidifying in that fractured moment. "Well, take whatever we have left and confront this nightmare, together," he said, his voice barely rising above the cacophony. But in that unity, in that resolute stance against the unknown, the air shifted as a door burst open down the hallway, sending a gust of cold air racing through the corridor. And amidst the swirling chaos, I caught sight of blurring figures, faces that had once been alive now twisted by something grotesquely foreign. "Help us!" They screamed, voices overlapping like a terrifying symphony, fading and rushing towards us. Time slowed, and with a heart drenched in dread, I realized, everything we thought we knew was changing. And the reckoning we had been avoiding was now standing right before us, beckoning for our choice. As the group closed in, confusion mingled with understanding. Whatever lay ahead could shatter our fragile alliance forever or forge it anew. But just as I took a step forward, ready to embrace the chaos awaiting us, a terrible flash of memory from the locked office jolted through my mind. Something vital had gone wrong, far beyond our wildest fears. I turned to look at Jeremy, my heart pounding like a drum, and uttered the words that hung heavy and aching between us all. "What did you hide?" And in that moment, before he could respond, the clinic erupted into a terrifying crescendo, and I knew we were about to find out everything. The chaotic echo of screams filled the corridor as the shadowy figures approached, their outlines flickering like illusions caught between worlds. Each face wore a mask of anguish that twisted my heart with an unbearable weight. The instinct to flee warred violently with the vow I had made to help those in need. As I stood rooted to the spot, Jeremy met my gaze, his eyes brimming with unspoken fears. "You don't understand," he managed, the tremor in his voice betraying his panic. "If we help them, we might be saving lives, but we're also putting everyone at risk, including ourselves." He glanced back at the approaching figures, as if anticipating their wrath. It was true, logic whispered against the ethical high ground we were trying to cling to. Just moments ago, I had been ready to rush forward, but doubt now wrapped around my heart as tightly as the shadows creeping toward us. "Maybe we can help them," I said, but my voice was thin, threaded with uncertainty. "We might be the last chance they have." Hope flickered dimly, buoyed by the thought that perhaps, deep down, the essence of who they once were still dwelled in that twisted chaos. "I don't want to die today," Jeremy whimpered, backing away as fear radiated from him in desperate waves. It was harsh against my own impulse to turn to the figures. "We can't leave them," I shouted, my resolve laced with desperation. "If we find a way to break through this, to reach whoever they are inside." A sudden crash startled us, a nearby door flying open. From the depths of the shadows, a woman stumbled into the light, blood staining her clothes. It was Rebecca, one of the patients I had treated, a woman who had brought laughter to our ward with her stories of travel and adventure. But now her face contorted with anguish, a wildness that pulled her deeper into that alien transformation. "Help me. Help!" Her voice cracked, fear strangling her words, and she fell to the ground, clutching her head as if battling unseen forces. It was a heartbreaking sight, a glimpse of the woman she used to be despite the horrific manifestation before us now. "Rebecca!" I cried, my heart breaking at the simple act of recognizing someone I cared for. "What happened to you?" I rushed closer but hesitated, terrified of reaching out, fearing that whatever had claimed her might shatter me too. My instinct screamed for care, but my mind recoiled from the threat she now posed. It's too late." Her words came out in tortured gasps. "You cannot save us. We are lost." The torment woven through her voice sent a chill through my veins, yet within her cracking plea lived a spark of hope, a hint that she still had a soul fighting against the chaos. I turned to Jeremy, the flicker of human connection igniting something deeper within me. "We can't abandon her. Not like this." He was visibly shaken, the tumult of emotions swirling behind his pained expression. "What can we do?" he blurted. "What can we possibly offer her in this condition? You don't know what these changes do." An unexpected voice cut through as Ms. Alberts joined the fray, her determination etched unmistakably on her face. "What we can offer, Jeremy, is a chance. A chance to reach beyond the horror, to find what remains hidden inside. She may be lost, but she isn't gone. Not all of them are." Though uncertainty still seeped into my bones, there was something in Ms. Albert's confidence that stirred the embers of resolve in me once more. We had to try. Barely finding my voice above the rising tide of fear, I stepped forward. "I'll go to her." "No. Stop!" Jeremy cried, but already, I was moving closer to Rebecca. The darkness encircled us, almost alive, a menacing aura that pulsed with raw power. Swallowing my fear, I crouched beside her, meeting her frantic gaze. "Rebecca, listen to me. You are stronger than this. I know you're still there," I murmured, the echo of my compassion reaching out to the fragments of the woman I remembered. She looked up, frantic breaths tearing from her lips. "It hurts. It's a part of me, but I don't want it. I want to be free." In the smallest gesture, I laid a hand on her shoulder, an act of defiance against the chaos that enveloped us. "Then fight it. You're not just a subject of their experiment. You have choices. Hold on to who you are." But as I steadied myself amidst her turmoil, the air shifted painfully, like a taut string ready to snap. Shadows converged, bringing with them a rising tide of anger, and I could feel the breath of the clinic itself quaking beneath our secluded ripples of hope. In a blinding second, the corridor transformed, the figures around us emerging from the dark, each face a mirror of desperate longing and twisted agony. I staggered backward, my pulse racing, overwhelmed by the realization that we had awakened something far deeper than fear. "Rebecca." I called again, focused on her eyes, searching for any sign of the person I had once met. "Please fight. Find your strength." But as the shadows enveloped us, every light flickered in chaotic staccato, revealing a nightmarish visage in the half-light. One of the patients had begun to transform, their body contorting not just physically, but somehow shifting into someone else entirely. The clinic pulsed violently, and I grasped for clarity as everything spun beyond my control. "Run!" Jeremy gasped, fear twisting his features further, and I felt the primal instinct to escape not within me at the sight of the horror unfolding before us. But before we could react, a low rumbling snowballed as the clinic shook, walls quaking as if protesting against forthcoming truths. The reality of my choices loomed heavy. The decision to help the ones embracing this twisted fate could drag us all under. In the midst of the chaos, Rebecca let out a wail, a sound that echoed through the hall filled with the anguish of 100 trials. "I can't hold on," she screamed, and I felt my resolve shatter like glass, and in that moment of vulnerability, a harrowing revelation struck. The tremors were not just external, they were of a deeper nature, linked inextricably to the very heart of the clinic itself. Each shift was a reminder of what had been condoned behind those locked doors, a damning revelation waiting to be unearthed. "What have we unleashed?" I whispered, heart racing, as the shadows hungrily engulfed us, and against the tide of dread, hope flickered delicately like a dying flame, teetering on the brink of extinction, and I realized as their cries filled the air, echoing the truth I would have to confront, we were not only at the mercy of the experiments but at the cusp of unveiling a terrifying legacy that now demanded its reckoning. For in order to face the truth behind the locked office, we had to withstand whatever darkness lay ahead, knowing it would change us forever, severing our fragile connections to everything we had held dear. In the coming storm, we would have to confront not only the lives marked by tragedy but our own haunted reflections lurking in the shadows. Terrifying silence fell around us, like a shroud, as the last echoes of Rebecca's wail faded into the dim corners of the corridor. The shadowy figures paused, their contorted faces twisting in grotesque unison, as if they sensed the crumbling facade of what was once our makeshift sanctuary. My heart thundered in my chest, a chaotic symphony underscoring the chaos unfolding before our eyes. "Do we run?" Jeremy's voice quivered, raw with panic. He shifted nervously from one foot to the other, clearly grappling with the instinct for self-preservation and the weight of compassion. "We can't help her if we're trapped here," but I could not tear my gaze from Rebecca's form, writhing and breaking before us. "No. We can't abandon her." The words burst from me like a desperate plea, underscoring the escalating urgency of our situation. "There must be something we can do." Inhaling sharply, I leaned closer to her, shielding her with my presence against the impending surge of darkness. "Rebecca, I promise I'm not letting you go," I murmured, feeling the warmth of something deep within her, a remnant flickering from the chaos. The humanity etched in her features spoke of the woman she once was, the traveler who shared whimsical stories and vibrant laughter. You can come back from this. The shadows roared to life, and suddenly, the ground beneath our feet surged, a violent pulse threatening to toss us aside. A memory surged through me of the day I had first met Rebecca, her spirit radiant even when cloaked in uncertainty. You have the strength to fight back against this, I know it. A brief flicker of recognition passed over her face, and her tremors receded just enough to draw my attention to the larger shadows collecting around us. In that moment, clarity crystallized in my mind. These figures weren't just the products of our nightmares. They were the echoing remnants of souls intertwined with the clinic's tragic deeds. The world spun, and just as I thought hope had anchored me, Jeremy's sharp gasp shattered the moment. Look! He pointed toward the darkened edges of the hallway where the silhouettes wavered like shadows given life. I turned, eyes widening in terror as I realized the figures began to shift and blur, morphing into distorted reflections of my own fears, the faces of lost patients, of those I hadn't been able to save. My breath caught in my throat, terror binding me to my spot as Jeremy clutched my arm, wide-eyed with disbelief. They know us. They can sense our fear. I shook my head, adamant. No. We won't let fear guide us. We have to push through. I gripped Rebecca's shoulders fiercely, searching within her eyes for a hint of the light I hoped still resided. Fight back. Together, we can wrest control from whatever darkness holds you prisoner. Unexpected warmth radiated from the point of contact, stirring memories that slowly intertwined with hers. I could almost see fragments of her former life playing out, the sunset moments, laughter shared, adventures yet to come, and I swore I felt those flares of light merge into mine. Amidst the chaos, Ms. Albert stepped forward too, rallying her own courage. Stay with us, Rebecca. We all believe in you, she called, her voice a clarion call against despair. The shadows seemed to tremble at her words, momentarily stalling their advance. Watching as the flicker of hope ignited a surge within Rebecca, I felt a shimmering thread tethering us together. It was fragile yet fierce, pulling me toward the essence of who she truly was, urging her to rise against the torment that clung to her. Yet just as that connection shifted, an unseen force lashed out, sweeping through the corridor like a venomous wind. I barely managed to hold on as the ground heaved beneath me, twisting the light into yawning darkness. Something deep within screamed for release. The air thickened with cries and echoes of tormented souls igniting the darkness that fought against us. Suddenly, a loud crash erupted, reverberating through the walls, but it wasn't just the chaos, it felt like something else cracking open. Like the onset of long-buried secrets clawing for daylight. From the edges of the hallway, the sound of splintering would register. A door, flung wide to reveal a room I had never noticed before. Over there. I grabbed Jeremy's hand, desperation thrumming through my voice. Maybe it's an exit. Maybe we can use it to escape. The shadows recoiled momentarily, drawn to the light radiating from that opening filled with a blinding glow, and once again, Rebecca's voice broke through the cacophony, softer now but still tumultuous. It's not just a door. You need to know what? I cried, twisting to look at her, panic threading my pulse. What do you mean? But the shadows surged back, and I could barely hear her whispered words beneath the rising tide of chaos. It was all connected. The doctor, his secrets, historic wealth. It was then, in the overwhelming tension of that moment, that I realized the truth. The external horrors mirrored a darker legacy hidden beneath the surface of the clinic, a life entwined with grief and despair that echoed deep into the heart of the system itself. Just as I thought I could reach for those truths, the shadows ignited into a maelstrom, swirling around us, shadows becoming the very embodiment of night itself, a formidable force that sought to consume not only Rebecca but the flickering hopes of all who had stood against it. Run! Jeremy shouted, yanking me away. There's no time, but my heart ached fiercely, tethered to Rebecca, as I realized how close we were to unearthing something monumental, a truth that could bind us or unravel everything we understood. The longer we stayed entwined here, the deeper the danger coiled around us. In that instant, I made my choice. No! I screamed, resolving to fight against the tide. We break this cycle now. And as the swirling shadows leaped towards us, threatening to engulf my very being, a thought pinched at my heart. If we stumbled upon this hidden door, perhaps it held the key to shattering the torment, but at what cost? With trembling resolve, I hurled my voice into the void, edging closer to the pulsating door that glimmered with secrets, a unity of despair and hope enshrined in its frame. Whatever lies ahead, I'm ready. But just as I began to step toward the light, the echoes of Rebecca's tortured soul broke free again, filling the darkness with sorrow, a bittersweet melody that seemed to linger, whispering final words that danced on the edge of clarity and heartache. Find me before it's too late. And with that haunting declaration ringing in my ears, the door swung open until the darkness swallowed us whole, and with it, the tether to everything we had dared to believe. As the shadows enveloped us, I stumbled backward, disoriented, a rush of terror flooding my veins. The light from the door had now vanished, replaced by the inky depths of despair threatening to claim me. I reached out, but there was nothing substantial to grasp, only empty space filled with the echo of Rebecca's fading plea. Find me before it's too late. The words ricocheted in my mind, relentless and haunting. They became a mantra, urging me onward. I couldn't abandon her. I couldn't turn my back. Where do we go? Jeremy shouted, desperation thickening his voice. What do we do? We can't just stand here. I could barely see him through the swirling shadows, the once familiar figure morphing into another distorted fear. But deep down, I knew my instincts were right. The door must have had relevance beyond our immediate escape. It stirred something within me, a sense that our futures were intertwined with whatever lay beyond. Back towards the door, I shouted, regaining my focus in the chaos. This darkness can't hold us. In unison, we turned, forcefully pushing against the encroaching shadows. The hallway writhed, as if the very structure of the clinic disapproved of our resistance. Each step felt weighted with dread, yet a flicker of determination ignited in my chest. Rebecca would find her way back to us, and we would uncover the truth she alluded to. As we raced toward the opening, the walls echoed with anguished whispers, a cacophony of lost souls. I could almost hear their stories, each one a thread woven into this dark tapestry. What were they trying to tell us? What outrage had unfolded within these walls, behind the pristine facade of the clinic? For a fleeting moment, the corridor morphed around me. I glimpsed visions of past patients, their faces twisted in suffering, caught in a perpetual cycle of despair. I hadn't known. How could I not have seen this before? Stay close, I urged, trying to keep Jeremy anchored amidst the swirling thoughts and impressions. He nodded, his determination flickering like a lone candle against the overwhelming dark. As we reached the door that had called out to us, the brightness threatened to vanish once again, the shadows clawing back, eager to bind us. Just as I grasped the handle, an icy pain shot through my heart, a pang resonating with the fear I had been trying to repress. Suddenly, a chilling laugh echoed, slicing through the darkness, a voice familiar yet warped. You think you can escape so easily? This is just the beginning. I froze, dread washing over me, and I turned slowly to see a figure emerge from the shadows. It was Dr. Treadway, the very man whose name had been whispered in fearful tones amongst the patients, a ghostly specter of authority that loomed over us. Your journey won't end here, he sneered, his eyes glinting with malevolent amusement. It's time you learned the truth behind the clinic and those it has swallowed. You think you can save your friend? Think again. The air thickened as he took a step closer, my heart racing faster than I could comprehend. You're fueling a fire you can't yet understand. Be careful, my dear. The shadows have teeth, but his words unleashed something deep within me. Rage bubbled up, mingling with the fear, burning hot and fierce, reminding me of all those who had been lost: Rebecca, the other patients, and all those whose lives had been ripped apart under his care. No! I shouted, defiance pouring from me. I won't let you control us anymore. You may have tried to bury the truth, but I will uncover it all. In that moment, I felt that tether to Rebecca strengthen, her essence rising like a phoenix buried beneath the rubble. I needed to keep moving, both towards bringing her back and exposing the darkness he embodied. As I wrestled forward, a violent gust swept through the corridor, knocking Jeremy off balance. "No!" I cried, instinctively lunging to catch him, but another shadow surged forth, breaking through the veil of darkness. "Enough!" Dr. Treadway boomed, and suddenly, the weight of his authority pressed heavily against our will. It was then I noticed a glimmer from the side, a small reflection, glistening amidst the despair. I couldn't quite comprehend what it was, but it called out to me, pulling at my senses. Maybe it was some sort of light, a shard of hope that could pierce the darkness engulfing us. "Jeremy!" I yelled, my mind racing. "We have to get to that light," he nodded, and together we surged forward, shadows lashing at our heels, desperate to reclaim their hold. With each breath, I felt Rebecca urging me on, fragments of her essence guiding me toward the clarity I needed, but as we neared the reflection, realization struck. Underneath the shadow was the unmistakable outline of a keyhole, glinting with malicious promise. In my heart, I knew it was not just an escape, it was a gateway through which secrets lay dormant, waiting to be unearthed, a truth that could shatter lives or unravel destinies. "Grab something, anything!" I shouted, fumbling through the pocket of my clothes, praying to find anything to use as leverage against the encroaching dark. But before I could fully compose a plan, the shadows lunged forward, and just as I grasped a metal object, a blinding light exploded around us. A flash so intense it pierced the shadows, spilling forth tendrils of illumination that fought to disperse the darkness. The panic surged through me. What would happen next? Would the shadows retaliate? Careening sideways, I dropped the object in a frantic attempt to shield Jeremy, when suddenly, the door behind us slammed shut, sealing off our escape. The shadows twisted, the swirling mass forming into faces soaked in despair, the patience lost within the dark filling the space with a shared torment, and then, within that cacophony of anguish, I heard the undeniable echo of Rebecca's voice, pleading yet stronger than before. "Find me before it's too late." But now the tone shifted, revealing an urgency that sent chills down my spine. I clutched Jeremy's arm tighter, my heart racing, knowing the stakes had just risen. The room was shifting, the shadows were restructuring, and as I turned to face the door, the gravity of our choices became crystal clear. I didn't just need to find Rebecca, I needed to discover the truth buried within the abyss before it consumed us all. With bated breath, I edged toward the shimmering reflection, knowing I was perhaps on the brink of unraveling secrets that would change everything, but also understanding that whatever lay within could also be the thing that shatters us entirely. The heavy air was pregnant with the weight of secrets as I stood before that door, the jagged outline shimmering with the last waning spark of hope. The echoes of chaos blurred around us, each shadow resonated with despair, a reminder of the lives we were fighting for and against. Dr. Treadway's voice still reverberated painfully in my thoughts, his warnings a suffocating bind. "The shadows have teeth." But in that moment, surrounding me was an unseen reservoir of strength, urging me to move forward, to confront everything that lay beyond that threshold. "Are you ready?" I whispered to Jeremy, barely able to gauge his expression through the whirlwind of shifting shadows. The air crackled with tension, and I could feel the anticipation of the hidden truth quivering just beneath the surface. It felt inevitable, as if the moment had been preordained by all the choices I had fought so hard to make. With a nod, he took a deep breath, and together, we stepped toward the shimmering keyhole as if crossing through to the other side of a dream. Time seemed to slow as my fingers brushed against the cool metal, an electric jolt coursing through me. Just as I gathered the courage to thrust the object inside, an anguished wail erupted, a sound not just of those trapped in shadow but of something much deeper, almost primal. I glanced back, where the mass of twisted figures writhed, and through the cacophony, I saw Rebecca. Her transformation seemed to ebb, her face momentarily illuminated by a flickering ember of who she once was. In that fleeting moment, I realized the depth of the connection we shared, woven through experiences, laughter, and pain. "Fight it, Rebecca. You're stronger than this," I shouted, hurling every ounce of conviction into my voice. As if on cue, something shifted in her expression. "You," she gasped, the threads of recognition intertwining with resolve. "You're here." With a sudden thrust of clarity, I pushed the metal object into the keyhole, feeling the mechanism yield beneath my determination. A surge of warmth poured through me, illuminating the dim chaos with a bright flash. Something deeper than just light, energy radiated from within, a rising tide meant to cleanse what had long been enveloped in darkness. The door quivered as a resonating sound filled the air, distorting the cries behind us, and then, with a shattering crash, it burst open. A stream of radiant light surged through the threshold, obliterating the shadows and sending a chorus of anguished cries spiraling into silence. But I took a hesitant step back, torn, as my heart ached with the faces left behind. Were they lost forever? Would this light bring salvation or merely unveil the suffering that had long been hidden from view? And in that moment of vulnerability, the truth blinked into view, their stories intertwined with the very heart of the clinic itself, a landscape of lives woven into something both beautiful and terrifying. Come on. Jeremy's voice cut through my reverie as he reached for my hand, his grip firm and assuring. We have to face this together. Bracing myself, I stepped over the threshold into the light, and with every stride, I felt the grip of darkness loosen, shadows shrinking back into the corners of a world that no longer belonged to them. The voices transformed into whispers, murmurs that lifted my spirits like the first notes of dawn at the break of a long night, and there, amidst this radiant expanse, stood the patients we once sought to save, every face familiar, every memory flooding back, yet now suffused with light rather than shadow. Each one ready to reclaim their own narrative. They were reflections of resilience, faces of bravery forged in adversity, no longer simply victims but survivors, stepping into their truth. That I turned back to see the shadowy figures dissipating into nothingness, their anguished existence unraveling like threads of a tapestry let loose from the loom. It was beautiful, horrifying, and overwhelmingly triumphant all at once. In the midst of this spectacle, Rebecca emerged, struggling yet undeniably potent. You found me, she breathed, her voice drenched in the triumph of reclaimed power. The purity in her presence radiated through me, flooding with warmth, and I could see her spirit slowly wrestling its way back, illuminating every corner of her voice as she broke free from a past of torment. I was lost, but you brought me back. Tears streamed down my cheeks, the surge of emotions crashing over me like waves against the shore. I wanted to tell her how proud of her I was, how proud I was to have fought alongside every single one of them. Behind us, the remnants of Dr. Treadway's distorted laughter echoed into the void, a sinister reminder that some truths sought vengeance rather than redemption, and yet, this overwhelming clarity surged in the aftermath, a realization that forgiveness is not blind acceptance, it is a powerful act, a fierce reclamation of all value hidden within. It is the light that shatters illusions, unmasking corruption under the gaze of honesty, allowing us to emerge renewed. In the distance, harmony swelled, voices intertwining into a beautiful symphonian anthem of resilience rising from the ashes of despair. It was beautiful to hear them, calling for each other, reaching out, no longer held captive by the chains of their past. I turned to Jeremy, the weight of the past slowly lifting, allowing warmth and recognition to stabilize our connection. We did this, I said, hardly able to believe it as the world around us shimmered into the backdrop of possibility. He nodded, a brave smile breaking through the remnants of uncertainty. And we're not done yet. There's so much work to do. Together, I echoed. It was a word filled with promises and futures, brimming with the potential to heal and reshape. In that moment, I knew I had found my redemption, not just through the lives saved, but in every connection birthed through this journey through darkness and light. As we moved forward together, the remnants of my fears crumbled and faded, revealing new paths interwoven with hope. And above all, I understood now, the most profound truths often reside in the shadows, waiting patiently to be embraced, waiting to open up the world to the light. And with every footfall echoing in unison, the final line of this journey thrummed through my heart. Sometimes, in the quest for truth, we find the very essence of what it means to be free.